to Track Industries YouTube channel. Today we will be installing a kit set into an Anderson 253. Let's start by breaking the pump down. The first thing we need to do is to remove the valve cover nut. This may be tightened up hard, so may require some effort to remove. You'll tend to find that the valve cover will need some help to come free from the main crankcase. Use a soft mallet or a piece of wood to help loosen it. Check the face of the valve cover. If it is corroded, you may need to look at cleaning it back. Often the valve plate packing will be stuck to the surface. You will need to get this off. The valve plate may need some help to come free from the crankcase. Just be careful not to damage the plate. Remove the old valve plate packing from the crankcase and the valve plate. They may need to be scraped off. Just be aware that you will need a good clean surface so that you'll get a good seal. It may help to run some sandpaper over the surfaces to clean any leftover valve plate packing off. Let's remove the end cover now. There are 4 bolts to undo. Check the condition of the bolts as you go. You may need some help for loosening the end cover. Remove the end cover gasket. Let's remove the delivery flange. Now remove the flange packing. Make sure the face of the flange is clean. Let's remove the suction chamber. Because of the shape of the suction chamber, you may find it easier using a spanner or a crescent to undo these bolts. Once removed, you can take off the flange packing from this side too. On the bottom side of the suction chamber, you will find two bolts holding on the suction chamber bottom plate. This holds in a strainer that will need to be checked and cleaned. Undo these two bolts. Remove the strainer and check its condition. Clean it, and if it is too damaged, please replace it. Place the strainer back into the suction chamber. Replace the O-ring on the suction chamber bottom plate. Then reinstall the bottom plate back onto the suction chamber. Retighten the bolts firmly. The suction chamber is now completed. Let's get the plunger assembly out. We start by loosening the plunger rod lock nut. Once the lock nut is loose, you can use a socket to unwind the plunger assembly from the crosshead. Once the plunger assembly is no longer connected, you can use the nut to push the plunger assembly through the wet end. Undo the nut and remove the water deflector. Push the plunger assembly all the way through and remove. Let's remove the valve assemblies from the valve plate. Once the valve assemblies have been removed, check the condition of the valve plate. It should be free of pits or buildup. It may pay to run some fine sandpaper over the face of the plate. Also check the threads on the valve plate. Let's install the new valve assemblies onto the valve plate. I like to take a valve post and just check that all the threads are working correctly. Start the valve assembly by putting the valve spring onto the valve post. Then put the valve washer onto the valve post. Before putting on the valve rubber, check that the smoothest side is facing down onto the valve plate. This will help give the best possible seal. Adding a drop of thread locker to the thread will help stop the valve assembly from coming undone. Make sure there is no thread locker left on the plate. This may cause a bond between the valve rubber and the valve plate. Tighten firmly and make sure the valve assembly is working. Now continue with the other 3 valve assemblies. Please note when doing the other side that the valve assemblies will go along the opposite long edge of the valve plate. With the valve assemblies installed, this is what it should look like. Let's remove the old cups from the plunger assembly. To do this, it is best to have a clamp, soft jaws and a socket set. Clamp the plunger rod up firmly and loosen the lock nut. Wind the plunger end and the plunger cup from the plunger rod. The plunger end is threaded onto the rod. Remove the old plunger cups from the plunger end and check the condition of that plunger end. Check the condition of the plunger centre, replace if required. Remove the last plunger end. Check the condition of the plunger rod. Let's install new plunger cups. Before putting the plunger assembly together, let's put some medium thread locker to help hold the assembly together. Install the first plunger end onto the plunger rod. Add on the cup. Install plunger center. With a new cup on the plunger end, add a bit of thread locker and thread the plunger end on. Tighten the plunger end up good and firm. Add the lock nut on and tighten to make sure the cups are held firmly. The ideal tightness for the plunger assembly is you should be able to get a little bit of movement from the cup, say 1 or 2 mils under pressure. Too much. Let's start rebuilding the pump. Put the plunger assembly into the water end, being careful not to scratch the liner. Line the plunger rod up with the hole in the gland assembly and slide it through. Let's repack the gland assembly with new packing. Feed the first length in and using a small screwdriver, push it into the back of the gland assembly. Wind the gland nut in to push the gland packing to the back and to seat it well. It may help to use the gland spanner to get the packing seated well. Once you're at the limit, unwind and repeat the process. You're generally able to fit 3 pieces into the gland assembly. When adding the next piece of packing, position the start of the length in a different place. The job of the gland packing is to stop water getting out of the water end. You don't want to have the ends of the lengths aligned. This will give the water a way out. generally get about 3 pieces into the gland assembly. Let's reconnect the plunger assembly to the crosshead. Before reattaching, put the water deflector and the plunger rod nut onto the plunger assembly. Thread the plunger rod nut back as far as you can. Using a socket that matches the plunger assembly lock nut, start threading the plunger assembly into the crosshead. Rotate the pulley to make sure there is a connection. Keep winding the plunger assembly into the crosshead until the plunger cups are centered in the bore. Using the ports in the plunger end, look down and see if you can see any parts of the plunger cup exposed during a full cycle, and just until you are happy that it is central. Cycle the pulley forward so that the crosshead can be seen, then tighten up the plunger rod lock nut until it is in firm contact with the crosshead. Check everything is moving freely. Let's reinstall the end cover. Let's put the cylinder end gasket onto the end cover. When you replace the end cover, make sure that the extended lip which goes into the water end is at the lowest part of the bore. If this extended lip is at the top, it will interfere with the performance of the pump. Now let's retighten the bolts. Tighten firmly. If air can get past this gasket, your pump will stop working. Cycle the pulley to make sure there is no contact between the end cover and the plunger assembly. Let's put the valve plate back on the pump. Match the large and small holes in the packing with the large and small voids in the water end. Place the first valve plate packing down. Then match the large holes with the downward facing valve assemblies on the valve plate. Position the second valve plate packing. Then take the valve cover and place it over the top. Once everything looks good, take the valve cover nut and reinstall it to the pump. You will need quite a lot of pressure to help the water in to seal. Let's reinstall the flange and the suction chamber. Replace the gaskets and put the bolts through to hold the gaskets in place. Start to bolt the suction chamber to the pump head. Repeat the process with the delivery flange. When you are finished, take time to go over the pump and make sure that all the bolts are tightened. Make sure that the pump is cycling smoothly and you should be good to go.